you, Daniel. Yom Kippur is my least favorite day of the year. No other day is close. I hate the physical strain of fasting, the coffee withdrawal that's already well begun and will get worse over the course of the day, the endless requirement that I face my sins, the lack of diversion from introspection. Last night it was suggested by our rabbis that we spend all day here doing this. It's really hard. What is worse than all, however, is the confusion I feel. I have no doubt that I have sinned and erred, but I also know that none of my sins are capital. I do not lie, cheat, steal, or murder. But I'm not always as considerate, as kind as I should be. I overcommit and at times underdeliver. I am moody and sometimes emotionally unavailable, even to those I love. I am also, like many of you, obsessed about what I have not been my best. What I find very hard to figure out on these days, however, is whether I can really do any better. I am painfully aware, and more painfully as I age, that I have serious limits, that I cannot be my best at every moment in the day. I try, I really do, but I have unfortunately deeply flawed. Frustrated by this tension of internal reflection, I've adopted in the last 4 or 5 years a new strategy, a strategy that I have found more useful. Doesn't mean it's not the worst of the year, day of the year, but it's better. I have been blessed in my life with several mentors who have remarkably positive influences on my life and models for how to live a life well lived. My father, Malcolm Weber, was the most powerful of these mentors. Dad was a remarkable man, a very undistinguished student who only found himself, in his own words, at officer candidate school during the early years of World War II. He went on to be an Army hero, part of the first Allied company over the Rhine, and the liberator of one of the smaller concentration camps, an experience that I should note, while leaving him very committed to the Jewish people and Jewish values, led him to believe there was not a God who acted in history, because what he saw could not have been allowed by an omnipresent God who acted in history. Despite many more promising options, he returned home to Springfield, Massachusetts, so that he and my mom could care for my grandmother until her very early and untimely death. He then had a 20-year successful and deeply unfulfilling career in business. In his mid-40s, he took a huge pay cut. My mom went back to work as a school teacher, and he became a public servant, chairing the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination through the early and mid-years of the civil rights movement, and then serving ADL and Connecticut's version of JCRC as a major leader until his very late retirement. I only saw him cry twice in my life. First time was at my mom's funeral. And the second time was when Barack Obama was elected president. For him, that was the culmination of what he wanted America to be. I must say I feel some sense of gladness that he is not witnessing the time in which we now live. That was his resume, but not his character. He was a kind man with remarkable courage of convictions. He did and said the right thing, regardless of its consequences for him. And he made everyone around him better. He made people rise to his standards. And he believed in people and made them believe in themselves. He made people better because he thought they were better than they were. He was the ultimate Mensch. When I was 12 years old, I I broke the pane glass window in our dining room, playing baseball in the backyard. I had been told approximately a dozen times not to play baseball in the backyard because it might break the plain glass window. But this happened, and I made up some completely cockamamie story about what had happened. My mom saw right through me. My dad said, if that's what he said happened, that's what he said happened. That night, my mother said to me, you know, it's not what happened, but your dad would never think that one of his children would ever lie to him. I never lied to him again. Late in his life, and he lived a very long time, he and I would often talk about how to judge a life. How do you look back on your life? And he said there are only 3 questions to be answered. How well did you help your family? How much did you do to help your community? And did you leave the world at least a little bit better place than when you came into it? Those were the only 3 questions. So on this day, I asked myself these 3 questions. And then I asked myself what Dad would say about how I would done. He knows what I can and can't do anymore better than anyone but Chris. I find this gives me a place to center. Not to mention it makes me remember someone I deeply loved and respected and loved me from the bottom of his heart. I love you and miss you, Dad, and hope I have lived up to your example. I know I will try. If I have let any of you down in the past year, I apologize. Please let me know, and I will try to do better. I can't promise perfection, but I can promise effort. Shana Tova.